everybody. Welcome to another episode of Design Recharge. I'm your host, Diane Gibbs. I think we all need a place to feel connected and to fuel our creativity, especially when we're at work, and especially when we're lonely onlys or we're in small groups. So that's exactly what today's show is going to be about. So I hope that you enjoy. Today we have Josh Morey, and he is at Michigan State University. And he has worked at other in-house companies. But the other thing I wanted to tell you was that this podcast is sponsored today by Audible. And you can go and download one free audiobook and then get a whole month for free at 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/design recharge. So excited to share that new thing, and I did that from memory too, so I sure hope it's right. The links will be below. I would trust them better than what I just said, but that's what I think it is. All right, so Josh, we're not gonna beat around the bush. We're gonna jump right in. We're gonna get some stuff, because this is something I think a lot of people deal with, especially for freelancers. So me, I have my own company, but I don't always get time to brainstorm and collaborate, or to even just pick people's brains. And that's why I kind of started a mastermind group. So you started a group of creatives at Michigan State. First give us a little bit of your background, and because you'd worked at two other in-house places before this, right?
Yes. So a little bit of background, because I saw a lot of the messages popping in here. So yeah, I went to Western Michigan University, so go Broncos. From Michigan, left Michigan, came back to Michigan. But in the past, so I've been at Michigan State here in the same college for 5 years, or about 5.5 now. Previously, I worked for a small private college in Adrian, Michigan, so it's just called Adrian College, and that was kind of when I got into higher ed. And then before that, it was kind of in-house. So I worked for an advertising studio that we focused mostly on attorney advertising and law advertising. But it was a really interesting environment, because I was the first employee in the office that was in Indiana. So where you talk about kind of like being that lonely only, I was besides my creative director and the half owner of the company, I was the only one there for quite a while. Until we started expanding. So
how does that, because I think just to kind of paint the picture for people who aren't, paint that picture of what it is like to be that lonely only, just remind people, although most people probably don't need reminding.
It is difficult. It takes a lot to kind of work through that. So here at Michigan State, we have communicators all over campus. But the hard part is, so we have our main area, our main communications for the entire university. And they do have, a few different creatives on staff and a larger staff than the rest of us. When it distills down to the colleges, sometimes there's none of me. They just don't even have a graphic designer, and they farm everything out to studios in the area. And then often you might get lucky and there's one of me.
But sometimes they're spread out into different departments, right? A lot of times, Patricia, I don't think you have a very big team either, right? So it's something that so what does it do to your creativity when you are kind of the lonely marketing department, or how do you have to keep fueling yourself so that you're not just burning out?
That's a huge piece. You really do have to keep that fire going. So like when I started here at Michigan State, it was fantastic, because I have a great marketing director. He's been here a little longer than me, and I was one of the first people that he added onto the team. So it's nice now, because we have a few other people. We have a videographer, a web developer, but being that only creative person, we don't speak the same language as everybody else. It's really hard, because you might be just looking for some feedback from somebody else, and they're just like, well, it's pretty. Yeah, I like it. It's real pretty.
Right.
But you're really trying to get that deeper feedback. And it can definitely be really hard. You do have to kind of keep that fire going. It does take a little bit of that initiating spirit. I try to do other things to keep myself creative. You have to, doodle during meetings, anything to keep that going, sketching when you can. I try to surround myself with creative things that other people make, because that really, having that environment helps a ton. I've sat in, a white box that I'm not allowed to do anything to before. And it's amazing just how much that can change your mood in general, you know?
So Amanda, I believe, is the one from Chicago, if I'm remembering, or Pennsylvania. You'll have to remind me. I'm so sorry if I got it wrong. I can only see so much of the chat. Chicago, I was right. Okay. So she says this is my current position. I'm the creative director, the project manager, the graphic designer, the copywriter, and the copy editor for 3 different company channels. And then she said, I'm exhausted.
That's a lot. That's a huge amount to take on, and different mindsets too. I mean, when you add in copywriting and copy editing, I tell people every time, if you want me to write something for you, you're going to change your mind really quick. I will write a zingy one-liner or a headline, but after that, you don't want me involved in that.
Right. So it is really pulling. So it's about refueling those gears or getting better at some things, because there's not really an option for Amanda probably to not write. So she has to kind of tack that on. So there are some things that you can do, and some hopefully maybe they would help you with some courses. There's a course by Marie Forleo or Derek Halpern, and I'll try to put those in the chat, that are for copywriting specifically. I actually think that helps all of us designers the more we do that. I know it looks weird not having my glasses on. Sorry about that. I really don't wear them except when I'm on the computer. Anyway, so you felt kind of alone. Did you have, when you moved to this position, did you have a creative director, or did you have another designer near you?
No.
Okay, so lonely only.
Yep, just me. Had my marketing director, which he is fantastic, and his wife is a graphic designer, so he gets it a little bit. He gets that crossover, but I mean, he loves Excel docs and tables and marketing research, and those are not the things that I'm passionate about in life.
That's my sister too, so yeah. I get you. So
I mean, he definitely can cross that line just a little bit, and that's always helpful. But this isn't his area. And that's the same way when I was at my small private college. I did not have a creative director. I end up taking on that role as well.
Okay, so you have a lot of experience being in-house. So why now, at this point in your career, did you say, hey, this is enough? I know there's other creatives here. What can I do?
So it takes you a little while to realize that you are getting burnt out, and then you got to figure out how to, light that fire again.
So what was it for you? What was it that turned you on that you're burned out?
I bet everyone's had that job where they are just unhappy to go to work, and they're unhappy when they're at work, and they're unhappy when they leave work, and you just get in that cycle. And I've never really had that here. I've never had that day when I'm like, man, why do I work here? Because otherwise, I'd try to leave. But when it starts getting to be that like monotonous, like, you're in that rut. It's the same thing every day. You're not really passionate about any of the projects that you're working on. And it's unfortunate, because when you work in house, you don't get to pick and choose. You don't get the glorious, multi-$100,000 contracts to do the cool thing all the time, which I used to do that. It was awesome. But, I get, this much awesome projects, and I get this much, it's going to keep on going. There we go.
Right.
Of the day-to-day, we need to make an imprint because someone has a event that they need cups for, or tablecloths, or quick flyers, because we just produce these things nonstop. And yeah, it's when you kind of can't say, well, I love my job. And I don't like saying that, because I love my job. I really do. But when you have that day or multiple days and it keeps on dragging on a little bit, that you're just kind of like, well, why am I here? If you start thinking about that, why am I here? Should I leave? It might just take a little bit of reigniting what made you want to be there in the first place. If that is a job that you took because you wanted it, not just because you're trying to stepstone or jump somewhere else.
Okay, but sometimes you have to do things outside, and you've been really good at this, doing things outside of work and then bringing them, and maybe sometimes that fuels your fire. You kind of have some side gigs or some side projects. I always think those things are really important. But I think in some ways this has helped fuel some of the things. But move over just a little bit towards the lamp and show that Print Matters poster.
Oh, yeah. Here, we can go for it. Watch this. I can move. We're not
So,
plugged in.
so I love French papers. They're one of my favorites. Anyway, Josh made this print with Print Matters is a thing that French paper and Mama's Sauce does. They actually came up there and they did this with glow in the dark ink, and it looks like it's on like a navy paper, and it's just 2 inks, right?
It is it's a 3. So we did it in black and silver, and then the glow in the dark is on that as well.
So, okay, so 3. So and it's stars. So there was this concept. This wasn't necessarily for work, but you did it, and they came to Michigan State.
It ended up being a kind of a combo. So one of the images that you posted that was really ornate line drawings on coasters, that was one of our holiday cards that we did. And it's one of those fun projects that I get to do every year is our holiday card. And we had used Mama Sauce for the printer. And then after we got done, Nick Sombrato contacted me. He's like, hey, I do this speaker series called Print Matters, and I see that you're at a university, and, it's with French paper, and they're also in Michigan. Like, what do you think if, like, we came up there and did the speaker series? And I was like, wow, I have no power. I have no control to do that whatsoever. But luckily, I know the people that do. The college that I worked for has the Department of Art History, and Design. And I know the professors over there, and it just happened to be that they were submitting grant proposals right then. So I got everyone connected, and we were able to actually bring it there really soon.
This is it, I think.
Yeah,
right?
That's the one. And so it was fantastic that it really all worked out. And then they usually, Nick and Brian ask somebody to make the poster for it, which I think is an awesome piece of the event. Now, the hard part is I really thought they were going to ask one of our students to do it because it kind of makes sense, and it would be a great opportunity for the students.
Sure.
But I was super fortunate that they did ask me, and then I wasn't going to turn them down. Because I was like, well, maybe you should ask one of the... No, I wanted to do it really bad. It was a fantastic process. And so it was kind of like this semi-work project, but it really became, a little bit of a passion project for me, for sure.
All right. So what else outside of work? Because I'm gonna try to find the coasters, because I want to show that as well. And I'm just looking through your Instagram. I don't know if you posted it there, but I'm hoping maybe.
They might have been there. They were from a few years ago, so I can't remember if they've made.
It's okay. I'll keep looking. All right. So
this tells me that I need to repost some stuff.
Exactly.
Get that Throwback Thursday in there.
That's right. All right. So so tell them a little bit about this Spartan Design League and how you started finding other creatives and then getting them together. And I know it's still new. You're still kind of figuring out how you dance together, right? It's still awkward maybe, but what are some of the things, because this could be, now granted, if you're a lonely only at a company, there's probably not, but if you're at a university, there may be some others. It could be that you reach out to or people in English, or you reach out to other people who they may not be doing it as a job, but it may be something that you can at least come together. And there's where brainstorming and things like that happen. So how did you start it, and what was kind of the requirements? Because I think you just says it's creatives, right?
Yep.
Oh no, it's Spartan Design League, but you open for everybody, right?
Exactly. So to preface that a little bit, so when you're that lonely only, it might not be that you have an organization to, tap into. So when I was working for the design agency in Indiana, since I was one of the first employees in that office, because my creative director and the owner of the company had just moved there, and she was feeling the same thing. Even though there was 2 of us, we were still feeling that same kind of thing, and we didn't have anything to tap into. So we found just people in the area. It's amazing kind of where the creatives are hiding in the area. And we started like a morning coffee hour, like once a month. And, we had people that were illustrating children's books and some people that did freelance design. So sometimes it can just, it might not just be finding that organization. Might just be trying to see who's out there. And I know it's really hard. And it does take you got to have that right personality. You can't be the introvert and just hoping that somebody also just lands on your doorstep.
Right.
But to fast forward here to MSU, so oddly enough, I tried to do this a few years ago and it didn't work. So this is my second time trying it. And
don't give up.
No, that's exactly it too. I felt a little, kind of torn on it since we tried once before. And another designer here on campus that I've worked with a couple times on different things, she had the same feeling. She's like, why don't we get together? There's a group for the web people, and there's a group for these people. And we have a communicators group, but I mean, that houses anybody that's considered communications for the entire university. And so where beforehand I tried to start it big right away, we decided to go a little more grassroots with it and start it small. We just started with 4 of us, and we started having lunch. And then
lunch like once a month, once a week, what?
Once a month. Everyone's got really weird schedules, and it's really hard to match them up since we're all doing such different things. But yeah, so we're like, okay, let's have lunch once a month and see what happens. And we had 4 people. Then we started adding on. We got 5, then 6, then 7, then 11. And then we realized that lunch was getting really hard because it was, at one point, I think we actually had 23 people sign up. Or show 17, 23? I can't remember the exact number. That's why I draw pictures for a living, because I don't do numbers. And yeah, it was like, wow, this is growing really well. And it was great. We, sometimes we would just talk about design things. Sometimes it's about, the hardships of things that we're dealing with in our departments here. We try to do a little bit of show and tell, like bring something that you're like really passionate about that you're actually working on, because often we don't see each other's work either. It's really hard here because we have such different audiences. My audience from my college is completely different from an audience from another college. And yeah, so we started doing show and tell. Now it's actually really ironic that we're meeting, that you and I are talking right now, because as soon as we're done with this, I'm going to go and talk with the other people that helped me start this. So it was not a lone thing. There's 3 of us that are kind of like running this to get it going. And we're meeting right after this because we did a survey last month to kind of ask what people are looking for too, because you can't just assume, what people are trying to get out of the group. So we love surveys here. We love research. So we sent out a survey, and we're analyzing those results to see what people are looking for, because we have a lot of future ideas. We want to start doing more of a lunch and learn or some workshops on campus, because the great thing is the skills that you have are not the skills that I have. Right. And I bet you can teach me something, and I bet I can teach you something. And if we can just make each other stronger at our own jobs, I think that's an awesome thing. We talked about this a lot when a few of us went to Adobe Max. And so we were talking about, what did we learn in different sessions, so we can try to figure it out. We talk about conferences a lot because we're fortunate here that since we're at, an institution of learning, that most of us have that idea, like, why don't we keep on making ourselves better? And we have budgetary allowances to deal with that. So we talk about conferences a lot to figure out where people can go to learn more stuff, or how can we, feel that creative fire again. So yeah, it's been really good. It was, and we started it slow. We started, I think, like last summer when the workload's not high.
Because Andre says he has something like that in Portugal. He did with a bunch of illustrators. He started in a coffee shop, and it's really small. He says, but it's not very successful. Are there any tips? So one is so if nobody's meeting, then it could just be that they don't know about it, or maybe it's not the right time. So it's about finding time, and maybe finding, I think, some key people. He had 4 people that would commit to doing it. I think so. It was about finding a time that they could come together instead of just finding a meetup place. Like, find a time that me and Andre and 4 people could actually say, hey, we're going to do this, and then we're going to invite it out. I think that was probably one of the key things for it growing, is that you did have that core group, that it wasn't just you, but you got buy-in from at least a few other core people, right?
Exactly. And it really worked, because we already had, these 4 or 5 people that were invested in it that really enjoyed it. So we're like, okay, even if it doesn't take off more past this, then I think we've already created kind of a successful group. It may be smaller than what we wanted, but it was still successful. And then, like I said, we have a lot of communicators here on campus. So we got to the point where we're like, okay, this is going kind of good. We decided to we got outed at a previous communicators meeting where somebody had said something and was like, oh yeah, and there's the graphic design group, and you saw the room go, what? There's a graphic design group? So we kind of had to move a little faster than we'd planned at that point. And we went to the next meeting, we told everybody about it, and at one hand, we're not trying to be, we truly are trying to be a group for creatives and for creative support. We are worried that it would become where people are coming to the group trying to learn graphic design because they don't have one of us in their department. And as much as we're not trying to be exclusive, we're not trying to exclude anybody, it wasn't our goal. Like, we really are trying to be supportive to the other creatives on campus. Like, that really was the goal.
So Andre says he has 22 in his Facebook group, but only 5 or 6 come. I think that's huge. That's great.
That's awesome. I mean, even if they're not coming in person, that online community is awesome. So I'm having the opposite problem. I had everybody show up, but I can't get anybody to communicate online.
Okay,
and it's hard because we get together once a month and we're trying to keep that like rolling through the rest of the month, and we're having a lot of trouble keeping that going. So, I mean, to have 22 in your group on Facebook, that's awesome.
Okay, so then he had 5 or 6 come, and then this month only 2 came. I actually think sometimes it's just a bad month, right? And you can't give up.
100%. We've had low months, and that's kind of why we sent out the survey too, because we were like, man, it seems like we're really dwindling. But then, I look outside right now, and you said earlier, Diane, that it was like 80 degrees outside. It does not look like that outside my window here in Michigan. So we were like, well, maybe people just don't want to get cold. Right. I think the lunch hour has been kind of hard for us too. So we're trying to experiment with different times to see if there's a time that works better. If you dwindle down to 2, it could just be that this was a hard month for everybody, or it could just be that, maybe one time you have it in the morning, one time maybe you have it in the afternoon, and then you can start using that to see, and it might even open it up to more in that 22. They might have something going on every morning and they just can never make that. It could be something work related. It could be that they have to take their kids to school that day.
Right. Okay. So, cause Andre comes, I just want to help. This is what Design Recharge is. This is the beauty of it being live. So if you have, there's a beauty about having it online, and there's this community that starts. So sometimes you have to start it online and it builds, and then you can meet in person. And or it's like what you have, Josh, where you have something that is started in person, and then maybe it becomes something where there's something more, or subgroups, or people are accountability, or doing something off, not during, but monthly. It could be because you've had some kind of leaner times, right? So when did you do this survey, and how many questions were in the survey, and how much response did you get back? Was it like 100% or 20% people filled out the survey?
So I didn't handle the survey as much. One of the other, so there's 3 of us that are really, like I said, working on this, and somebody else is very good with surveys. So they were fortunate to do it for the rest of us. Well, we had a really good response. When I say really good, I think it was 17 or 18 people, which for us on campus, that's actually really good because there's not a ton of us. And we did it, I think it was about a month and a half ago. And so
almost a year.
So we started the group last summer. So we're probably about 9 months in. Okay. And all of these numbers can be made up. I don't even know. I'm just pulling the numbers. You already said you weren't
great with numbers. Right.
But yeah, the questions kind of came along like, what are you looking to get out of the group? What would you like to see? It was really trying to see how we can tailor this to people. And then it came down to easy things like, hey, do you want to be at lunchtime, or do you want to do it another time? Do you want to meet off campus, or do you want to meet like somewhere that's nearby?
So what about the number of questions? Because sometimes if you have a good response, if 17 to 20 people actually responded, that's huge. But how many questions did you keep it, and was it pretty straightforward? Because I think this would be something that Andre could actually send out, do a doodle, I guess you could do a doodle poll, but where times are of the essence, but you could do like a free little form where people are filling out, or questions, I can't remember, gravity form or something, where it's just like 5 questions and ask, just a little survey to kind of get an idea of. So how many questions were in yours?
I feel like, and again, I'm just going to make up every number I got today. No, I feel like it was around 10. Okay. It probably was a few more than that. And it might have seemed a little bit longer because a lot of times we did try to lead people a little bit, like, what are you looking for, in parentheses? Oh, are you looking for, like learning opportunities? Are you just looking for networking? Are you looking, to talk about vendors, because here on campus we have to deal with that a lot.
Yeah.
And so it was a little more open-ended, so it probably took a little more effort on their part, just so that so we're not forcing them into the questions that we wanted. Because that was the whole idea, is that we wanted to really see what other people were looking for.
Right. So in a way, so Amy's saying that they did something like this to really get our AIGA Raleigh going, and they did a lunch and learn series. And she said, so this may be one of the other issues, Andre, is that proximity is a real issue. So if the location was really good for some people, it would bring more. But if the location wasn't good, it was too far. If it was at lunch, it was too hard to do. So really asking those questions before work, after work, on a weekend, or
we ran into those same issues. Yeah. I mean, I think it's common for any group. We've definitely ran into those exact same issues. We had somebody that's like, well, I really only get an hour for lunch. I got to be back in exactly 1 hour. Or there's other people, like I have a very flexible schedule where I'm like, man, we want to talk for an hour, 2 hours, what
right.
do you like? And part of it too is, since it's hard when it plays into supervisors as well. If your supervisor is okay with you having a meeting that they don't see how it's really related to. And that's when we started out originally. We didn't have a name for the group. We didn't have a, set, like, well, we're going to meet the second Tuesday of every month. And making those a few more, like being in all of us from the same organization, kind of legitimizing it with some of those details, I think helped a lot of the people in the group, that they were like, oh, well, I'm going to the Spartan Design League meeting. And they're like, oh, okay, well, that's a thing. That sounds real. It doesn't sound like you're just, going out for coffee with your friends when, we need you doing a specific thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and also if you schedule it out a month in advance, or they know that it's the second Tuesday or whatever, then it also, they know to avoid that time or block that time out. I also think, I'll have people who will ask me for a meeting and I'm like, this week? I'm like, I can't meet with you this week. Like, even if it's a Monday, this week's already booked. I'm almost all booked for next week. So it's really, our times are tight, I think. And I think everybody has super tight. I mean, this is just work stuff for me. So I think having 2 weeks out is a really good enough time, hopefully. I also think Amy's had something else that I wanted to share. She said, when you're doing this, so that some topics might pull better, that might be something more that they wanted to learn or wanted to do. Like, I don't know if your Print Matters was highly attended. I would think that maybe that was attended also by students.
Very, very student heavy. Yes.
Anyway, it's awesome. So it's great for students or for real people. But it is about what you're calling it, so that there's bullet points of saying, hey, I'm going to go to this Spartan Design League and we're going to be talking about SEO, or we're going to be talking about printers or online printers or something. And then that way, those bosses, if it is during that work hour, that they are more apt to saying, oh, well, what are you covering this week?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Exactly. And that's where we're trying to go next. That's our next step for sure, is starting to have more of a kind of structured topic, or if it's not happening on the normal meeting that we've set like that we're going to start peppering in some other things. Like, well, okay, we're going to do a learning session, but it's going to be, next month on this Wednesday at this time, and this is the topic. So I hope people will want to check it out. Oh, when we first started it, when it was like the 5, 6, 7 of us, before we did all this, we would fill out like a doodle poll just to figure out what day worked for everybody. And since we kind of moved that, it's, we can't, when it gets to, the 15, 20 people, you can't send out the doodle poll asking 20 people, like, what day works great for everyone? Because you're never going to hit it.
No.
I have trouble scheduling a meeting with 4 people here. It's not happening. So yeah, we don't do that kind of pre-sign up when we're doing something more like workshop based. I think that's probably a really good idea to go about, or just get a feel for how many people there, because we have a lot of different options for room availability here on campus. And, we've got rooms that are a little more intimate, which could be fantastic, but also we've got some larger spaces that we can use.
All right. So here's 2 questions. These are kind of not related, but they are kind of related. So one, you said that once you called it. So how far in You started it in the last summer. How far in did you call it Spartan Design League?
We started that once the school year got rolling again. So summer was kind of our soft rollout to see if people would show up again, which it was awesome. People did show up. And then we started trying to kind of legitimize those details in like, I feel like it was October or September, somewhere in there. You know, we gave it a little time to kind of like get its feel for itself. And then we started trying to add in those details that's what had failed our first time. So we really wanted to try the opposite. The first time we were like, okay, we want to start a design group. We should email all the designers and this is when it's going to happen instead. And you know, it didn't work. And like you said earlier, don't get discouraged from that because, people change, people move, organizations change. Right. There could be someone, I mean, this was probably 2.5, 3 years ago at this point that we previously tried. Could be a bunch of different people in the area now that would be super excited about a group like this.
Okay, so here's some of the other questions. Okay, so here's some suggestions and questions. One, I want to know if you're ever, so I think content and having like a content calendar is helpful for people to know. And that if once a quarter or once a year or 3 times a year, you're doing a workshop, right? That there's something that might be a little bit longer, but then that might be that you need a little bit of funding for that, which I know at a school you could maybe apply for a grant or something like that, or an internal grant, or sometimes your boss will do something like that. But sometimes people were saying, oh, if they have $5, if they pay $5 in Orlando at an AIGA event, and if it's a $5 event, then once you get there, it saves your seat. But if you come, then you get your money back. You get your $5, which I actually really like that. Then it is incentive for you to come. Yeah. Because I do think people will come for their money, you know, because it gives some validity as well as like, oh, this is something I don't want to just walk away from. And then Amy also, or somebody, Kim says that they do that in Orlando. And then the other thing was if you had like a bigger speaker come, how would you get that funded? Or what is like a goal? I know you talked about a lot of things, but what was the goal for you or the core group, the 4 people? What was the goal for starting this? And I do think that's really important to kind of narrow down in the beginning.
Really our main goal boiled down just to that creative support and to have other creative people to talk to. You know, circling way back to the beginning of our conversation, like really trying to counteract that burnout that you get by yourself. Having a community of people that we can talk to, having people to speak the same language. And I'm not talking regular language, obviously, just talking the creative language, things that we deal with on a day-to-day basis, knowing that we're not the only people doing that at one time. Right. So, I mean, the main goal was, creative support. How can we really build, I mean, we're already here. How can we build this community so that we can support each other? I mean, that's a huge, huge piece of it.
So really, it's just really about community, because this is the reason I wanted Josh to come on. During month of Love on Designers, this is the last week, and this week you're supposed to, and I don't care if you keep it going the whole year, people, but this is the week you're supposed to reach out to somebody who maybe you don't know, but you've read their book, or you've done, they're training on YouTube, or you, whatever has made a difference in your life or in your career. And I think that is something, it never gets old for those people, because sometimes they don't get thanked as much as you would think. Sometimes they get more bad stuff than they do good stuff. So just reach out to somebody and share the love this week. So, but that's why I wanted Josh, because he was so much about community. And I also wanted him because he has such a positive attitude and he didn't give up. So you have the burnout, you have these 4, it kind of flip-flops 2 years ago, or it doesn't get off, but then you don't give up because you see there's still this need. There's still the want from the people around. Okay, so you do think the name helps? That was Brian Yan asked that question. He said, do you think it gives validity to having that group?
100%. 100%. Yeah.
What was the difference?
It really made it. What's that?
What was kind of the difference? Like before it was just this, and then once it had a name, why was it so different?
It's the point that I had made earlier was it really gave people something to call it so that it didn't sound like you were just going out to
lunch,
be away from the office, not do work, or go just hang out with other people. And that really did add validity to it. Just so that, because like our web group has a name as well. It's the Web Dev Cafe.
Yeah.
And there's a couple other groups on campus, and especially being on campus and being in an organization, like having a name actually helps add validity to us at the university as well, which definitely helps.
So Brian has another question. He's full of questions today, but that's okay. He always answers everything and puts in all the stuff in the chat.
Brian and I chat all the time. I love this.
Okay, so here's one thing I do know from being the 50, I don't know, whatever number chapter, 75 chapter we were in Mobile. You have to have 50 people commit to AIGA if you're going to do an AIGA chapter. So that's the one kind of, if like Blacksburg might not be that big of a city that has enough creatives to kind of pull that. Same way, I don't know where in Michigan you are. Don't show me your hand.
Oh, come on. It's the only way.
No, where, that's okay. But like where in the.
We're right in the middle of the state.
And is it in a big city?
So we're in the capital. So we're in, we're technically in East Lansing, but Lansing is the capital of Michigan. We're not the biggest city in the state. So one thing that's really hard, and so when I went to Western, we ran into a problem with this as well. So we are very close to being equal distance between Chicago and Detroit.
Oh, wow.
Which makes it really hard for AIGA. Especially when I was at Western and we were a student group there, nobody would claim us. We actually did not have a parent organization because we were in the middle of Chicago and Detroit. And even here, it is hard to get to those Detroit events. It's, about an hour and a half away.
So there's not one in Lansing?
No, there's not an AIGA group here. There is an AIGA student group, and it's driven by the graphic design program. We don't, as staff members, we don't have any interaction with them. I only have interaction with them because I hire interns from our design program, and they happen to be in it. One was a former president of the student group, but not a actual professional organization in the area. And I mean, it's hard. One of our faculty members used to be the president of AIGA Detroit, but it's really hard to get to Detroit to actually do this.
How far? How long of a drive is that?
It takes about an hour and a half.
That's a long time for a night event or even maybe a weekend event.
Yeah, it gets a little difficult. And not that, we don't like to drive places. We got to drive everywhere. But yeah, if you're looking to do something and there's an evening event after work, you're looking at, 3 hours in travel time,
right?
Or at least 2. And then the event, it's as much as I love my job and I love my passion. At the same time, I've got 2 kids. Yeah. I've got to be home sometimes. I'm recently appointed as a school board member for our public schools here. So now I get to do that in the evenings as well. It definitely makes it a little hard.
So Kim says, and she's in New York, and she says she's a longtime AIGA New York member. Matter of fact, I'm attending a seminar tonight discussing the Uber brand design.
Ooh,
so
nice.
I think location is really big. So going back to Brian's question, it says he's been trying to team up with a few local creatives to create community, just like Josh is talking about, and have thrown around the idea of starting a professional AIGA chapter. Again, it is a really good thing, Brian, because you're honing in to a group that's already established. There's lots of perks that go with AIGA, but it's about, you have to have those numbers and that's it. And so if you can get those 50 people, then you're golden.
And for us, it's kind of difficult as well because the group that we have here is very specific to it being creative people from Michigan State University. Mm-hmm. Now, we actually do benefit in this area. There are a lot of design studios. We actually had our local addies this week. There's a lot of advertising and design representation of the area. But being an in-house designer, and especially being, a designer for a university or higher ed, we're not considered exactly the same as designers that work for studios. It's kind of hard. I'm not saying that anyone's trying to exclude anyone, but we have a very different way we have to work. We have very different things that we're doing.
I think a lot of in-house designers feel that way. I think a lot of
Very
in-house
true.
people feel separate or I don't think this at all. I actually think that in-house designers are amazing. I actually think it anyway. But sometimes they feel like low, if there's a tier of designers, the advertising people, those are the best.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't want to be one of those people because those people are the most stressed out. And then the second tier is the design firms or design studios, and then in-house. And so it feels like you're like,
you definitely people see that hierarchy for sure, and unfortunately,
it's not true.
It's not true at all.
It's not at all. Absolutely,
it's not at all. It's unfortunate because that idea does exist, and it's hard. There's reasons why I work in house. I've worked for a studio. There's lots of reasons why I work in house. I used to work for, as I said, for a really nice small studio. It was fantastic in many regards. In other regards, like insurance and benefits and the things that you need to survive and have a life.
Usually you make a little bit more money, or you make a good bit more money in-house than you do at some of those other places. Maybe not advertising, but you have to work your way up, and it can be very stressful. And your time, your hours are more set at an in-house place. You work 5. And I
definitely sacrifice that. I have a very flexible and lenient schedule that does not exist in the design world elsewhere, I don't think. Working in-house, you definitely benefit in that way 100%.
Okay. We're on question 3.
Oh, come on. That's like 3.5. We talked about some of the other ones.
We did. You're right. So I want to talk to you about your craft beer love, because I think this is something that ends up being so a lonely only. Maybe they're connected with an AIGA group or a creative mornings group, or they have something else, because it doesn't mean that if you are in-house that you can't get with other in-house people, so then you could kind of get together and do those things. But what are some of the things outside of work that have fueled some of the even work that you've done inside?
So as you said, yeah, I will definitely use the word snob. I'm a craft beer snob. Let's call it a hobby. We'll say that. It's hiding alcoholism as a hobby. But it's really great. It's actually how I met most of my friends here in the area once I moved here. It has an entire community to itself as well. Meeting brewers are great. We have some great breweries right here in the area that are now just nationally known. And I love beer. I really do. I love everything about it. The sad part is my wife can't drink it at all. So it's unfortunately something that I get to do. And
so does she have like a gluten allergy? Can you see this big? No.
It's really big on mine. There we go.
Oh, it is? Okay. Well, then I'm going to leave it big for a second. So this is something that you created. You did 2 kind of pieces. And so you want to tell us about this?
So this is so there is a local brewery here called Old Nation Brewing, and they kind of hit the scene running in this area, and MLive, which is a news agency, named one of their beers like the best Michigan beer for 2017 or 18. And I know that I've met the brewers. I talk with them, the marketing guy. They know I'm a designer, and they approached me for this. And they had said, "Hey, we're actually starting this new festival that's going to be in town here. Would you like to do some of the identity work for it?" And I was like, "Yeah, that sounds fantastic." Now, I wouldn't call it spec work because I got paid in beer, which is not the worst thing in the world.
That's just trade.
Yeah, it's a bartering system. We're going back to it. It's fantastic. And the only thing that was unfortunate about that project is there were some details that didn't work out right, and unfortunately, we didn't actually use it for the event. It's the downside, but not every project.
But you had fun.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun doing it.
Had you ever done something like that before?
Not really for either a festival or for craft beer. And that's something like there are some great craft beer design out there. There's some people that I follow on Instagram that do that amazing work, and it just blows me away. And it's something that I don't get to do that here in higher ed, but it's something I would like to do on the side. And it has to be one of those things like, you gotta do the work to, get the work. So I'm hoping to expand on that a little bit more. And that's one reason why I just really said yes to doing that festival, just kind of getting the foot in the door a little bit, getting out there, meeting your community, because these brewers are part of your community too. And when they know you're into the bartering system, they like that.
So Andre asked, have you done any labels for beer? Because this sort of has a sort of label feel.
Yes, and that's what we were going for. We were going for, because that was a lager festival, so we were going for like a kind of like a vintage Pilsner or lager label. Yeah, will work for beer, 100%, Naomi. I mean, I'm going to buy it eventually anyway, so we got it. Right. And once you hit that snob level, the beer starts costing a lot more.
So bartering is good.
Bartering is good. But no, Andre, I haven't done a label. It's kind of hard. So a lot of designers probably know it's really hard to create that passion project that doesn't really have that purpose. So as much as I would love to create some labels, it's hard when you're just designing with that blank slate. You don't have the creative brief to go with it. When you're just designing anything in the world that could be, it's really hard to kind of hone that in, because it's not reality. You know, if I was working with a brewery like that, you know, you're going to have stipulations. You're going to have
and which are helpful, right?
Yes,
those
exactly.
Constraints help us. I always needed those prompts from in school.
100%.
When people just open it up, it was very uncomfortable. So you either have to really know who you're going for, or an audience, or an event, or something. Like you have to kind of create that. So
exactly.
So what other things do you do that fuel that fire for you?
So I try to do a lot of different things. And I made this joke to somebody else recently too. I'm always looking for the next project I won't ever finish. I start a lot of different things, try to keep up with them as much as I can. One thing that really helped me, and this was not this previous fall, but the fall before that, is I told myself that I was going to participate in Inktober that year. Which, if anyone doesn't know, Inktober is a monthly drawing, or a month-long drawing challenge in October. There's tons of lists of prompt words. You get a prompt word for each day of the month. There's people with different themes for them.
Was this one of yours?
Yes. So that is climb. Sometimes I take things quite literally. But it was really cool because one, and this goes to kind of like my learning process a little bit. So when I was in school, we didn't learn Illustrator. We learned Macromedia freehand because it still existed, and that shows how old I am, or maybe how long ago I was in school. And it was fantastic. Yeah, Brian's got it. Macromedia for the win. Freehand was awesome
too. That's what I learned then.
Yeah, and it was really hard because after I graduated, Adobe bought Macromedia, destroyed freehand. And it was getting to that point where InDesign had become a lot more powerful in the past few years. And I was like, man, I can get away with doing any illustration stuff I need to do in InDesign. I mean, there was a few little things, and now my eyes are open, but I thought there were a few little things that I really needed Illustrator for. So I had told myself for Inktober that I would, in the process, teach myself how to use Illustrator better, because I knew it was my weak point, and I knew I could get better at it. So I told myself that I would make sure I would try to learn the different ways that I should be doing things correctly in Illustrator, and I would only use that for all of Inktober. And I got to say, I was pretty proud. One, I actually did the entire thing. I went all the way to October 31st. I did pre-plan a couple things. Most of the time I would just try to go in that day, look at my word.
But it's just like your group pre-planning. I think this is some of those from it. Pre-planning really does help, because then it's not about time. Your time is you're taking care of your time, and you've already done some of the concepting instead of just waiting, right?
Yes. And then my other goal was, so with it, I was like, okay, 1, you got to do the entire thing. 2, you're going to do it all in Illustrator. And 3, you're going to pick a distinct style that you've seen before, and you are going to illustrate the entire set to be one cohesive set the entire time. And then some of them have secondary drawings, which were kind of fun. Like if you go up to the mouse.
Oh, whoops.
Oh yeah, that was a special Friday the 13th edition. Just because,
okay.
Yeah, happened.
Here, I'll go to the mouse.
Like the mouse is there, so there's actually 2 of them.
Oh, I love that.
But the juxtaposition of the tails matching, or the airplane one has 2 of them there. just as
Yeah,
your
cool.
patterns change. But doing Inktober was actually absolutely fantastic. I loved it. Now I turn these things into stickers and I hand them out to people. I've got the poison one, but I was impressed. I did the entire thing.
Oh, that one's good, Josh.
Yeah. See, if I take my
did you do that blur in in Illustrator?
I think I did. I'm trying to remember. See, I had to teach. I would Google how to blur in Illustrator. Sadly, that one, if I take my contacts out, I wouldn't be able to see the screen anymore. That's not even a good representation of it. That was my nice little lumberjack.
But you made a sticker of him, right?
Yep, I've got a sticker of him there. That's big old Paul. And yeah, so I definitely pre-planned a couple of them. And the most impressive part about it is I actually continued to do it when Adobe Max happened that October. And I think when you go to conferences how much time you don't have and how long those days are. The little cigarette pack, and I think the word was dirty. And since Max was in Vegas that year, and I was like, man, I cannot believe how much smoking is going on here. This is insane. It's in my pores. And I'm sitting on a smoke-free campus here, so I'm not used to that in my environment anymore. And so I remember illustrating that one at 2 a.m. Vegas time, which is 3 hours past us, and I really wasn't clicking with the jet lag.
Well, good for you.
And I still submitted one every day. I think my contacts were like glued into my eye sockets at that point. I couldn't see what I was doing. It's a pro tip to show out how I didn't pay attention to the details. It's the only one that doesn't have the shadow effect that all the other ones do, like the split toning, because I just completely forgot, and it was like 5 a.m. my time, and I just gave up.
That's okay.
Yeah, I noticed the next day I was like looking, I was like, no! And I was like, no, I can't redo it because I really had focused on, you will do this every day. And I wanted the record to...
So you didn't give up. Once again.
Yeah.
So you harnessed your inner beaver and you don't give up.
Stick with it.
Right. Okay. So one other thing I wanted to ask you, want to make sure we talk about, is about the positivity. And so I asked you this question. You're also a big proponent of the effects of positivity. You've always been, to me, have you always been so positive? Or was there an event or time that happened that caused you to change that mindset and really start making positivity a habit?
I mean, you have your choice. You can either be positive or you can be negative. I think I know which one is going to help you live a longer life and make your life a little bit better in the process. So why not go for it?
To a lot of people,
I'm not always a positive person. I might seem that way. I try to be. I don't drink caffeine. I drink caffeine. I don't drink coffee. So all of this is just pure adrenaline most of the time. But it is a choice.
It is
a choice. It is a choice. You don't always get to make that choice yourself. Sometimes that choice is made for you. But if you have the ability to be positive, why not? And you're going to affect everybody else around you. I made the opposite quote of this to my wife, I think yesterday. And I said the best way, and this is a paraphrasing from a Calvin and Hobbes cartoon from way long ago. It was the best way to help a bad mood is to spread it around. And I think that's the same goes true for positivity. The best way, the best way to stay positive is to spread that positivity around. And I'm not saying say yes to everything, because you're going to get yourself in trouble that way. You can be positive and still say no. You can positively say no. But it really does help. And I mean, there's the days when I'm feeling the same way. I'm feeling in that rut. I'm not in a good mood. It's going to be obvious to everyone, especially if you're positive most of the time and you're not in a good mood. People kind of pick up on that. But if you can rub it off on everybody else and, help out, it's just going to help everybody. I hope that is the exact comment, Brian. Thank you. Calvin and Hobbes shaped my future for sure. Bill Watterson was a master.
Loved him.
I still read the books I had as a child whenever I go to my parents' house. They're still sitting there. They are so bent in half from how many times I read them. But I mean, I hope I love that you say that I'm a positive person too, because I talk about this when I do conference speaking sometimes. You only get to know what you think of yourself, but a lot of what you are is your outward reflection and what people see you as. So it makes me feel positive that you say that I'm a positive person, because that means I'm doing my job. And hopefully I'm not just sitting here and just, putting on the positive face all the time. And, you do have to kind of live that way. You can't fake it, because with anything, you can only fake it for so long.
Well,
or you're going to be able to, people can tell that you're faking it.
It's about perspective a lot of times, right? Like, okay, well, looking at it from how Judy saw it, if you and Judy had a row, it's looking at it and seeing, okay, well, how could I see it from what Judy's perspective? I think that's an effect of positivity. But I also think that people want to be around other people who are positive. So if you're super sarcastic, sometimes it can rub people the wrong way, because we don't know if you're being, well, especially in like chats or texts or something, it's hard. It's hard to know if you're just being funny or not.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's just really important to be positive and be that encouraging. And that's what this whole month is about for Love on Designers, for sure. Okay. So sometimes social media can get really kind of negative.
Sometimes?
Okay. Sometimes. So what's your philosophy on things that you post and share? And then I'll ask you the rest of it.
Okay. So social media definitely is not the most positive environment to be in. It's quite toxic most of the time. And that's a great word for it. It's toxic. It is. And I've seen, there's a lot of Instagrammers that I follow that talk on this subject quite a bit. It's really hard. Like, so yeah, I definitely, the negativity feeds into things, and it can be as simple as, oh, I posted something and, I'm not getting any views. I mean, that definitely, it hurts. I am guilty. I've deleted something that had a really bad interaction. And a lot of that does have to do with the Instagram algorithm.
Like, it didn't get enough, or it was getting negative feedback?
I'm guilty of deleting it because it did not get a lot of views. It also seemed really low based on the other analytics of my post. So I didn't know if it was something I did wrong with tagging. And I ended up reposting it at a different time to see if it was something that I did wrong. Because I don't have a big Instagram following. So, when there's 15 hearts on a post, whoa, we got it.
Right.
Banner year it's all coming up Millhouse. It's all fantastic.
But sometimes it is that it's a great piece and it was just posted at the wrong time, or it was the wrong day, or
you can't beat that algorithm. It's gonna come down hard on you anytime. And luckily, I'm not running it as a business. If you see my work and you would like to hire me, go to Joshua. No, I'm
we'll share that in a minute. Joshua-Morey.com, Morey.
But there's people that are making their living off of Instagram. So when the algorithm is fighting them, it's hurting their business. It's hurting their money. That's hard. I luckily have this plush, warm white box to live in.
Right.
And they pay me money to do this all day.
So what about things that other people post that you share? Because I always think that that's like the real, that's like taking somebody on your shoulder. If you share a piece of content, not just the stuff that you post, but also the things that you share. I asked my students this and they said, oh, I don't share very much. And I said, well, what kind of things do you share? Because I actually really think that it's really interesting what other people do share. And they were like, really, it has to be really funny, or it has to have been something that I want my name attached to. And so what kind of things do you share?
So for social media, and the only platform that I'm really on is Instagram for professional stuff. I use Facebook for personal things and, posting photos of my kids and all that. And I am not a Twitter user. I have a Twitter account. It just says go to my Instagram page now. It's not my vibe. But so I don't really repost other stuff. And I think part of it is because Instagram makes it really hard to do it. It's not really about a sharing culture. And they've taken that stance. They're like, why don't you have a repost button? Because we don't want it. Because we're not going to do it. Because we're not Twitter. And it's unfortunate because I do think there is value in that. And so I think I've gotten to this point where I've kind of made it on like what my plan is that I don't share stuff from other people. Now I do collect it and look at it. I have lots of little pin folders or whatever that little thing in the corner is now. So I'm definitely looking at things. I'm making sure that I'm collecting them because I think they're beautiful or inspirational, but I'm really not putting it back out there to other people. And that's just kind of the stance that I've taken.
And it's because you're living mainly on Instagram.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it'd be different if it was like, oh, would you like to repost this? Click. Yeah, that sounds great. Since they make it hard.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They totally make it hard.
And I think it's really easy for people to steal stuff, which I think is another toxic problem with social media as well. Like showing, since they don't have a way that would repost your work and keep your name attached to it, it makes it really easy for people to kind of snag your own work. And it's unfortunate. Yeah.
Absolutely. So you don't do this yet. Have you thought about branding your images like with something? I'm going to try to pull up my friend Scott Soder. He does this really good, I think.
I've thought about it. I feel like I'm not popular enough that anyone would want to steal my work, but you never know what people are going to want. Cause again, I follow a lot of people. There's people every week that are saying, I can't believe this global brand stole my drawing. Right. And it's hard because they're going to steal it no matter what. And I kind of feel like that's the part with like adding a watermark or something to it. If someone really wants to steal it, they're going to steal it.
Yeah, I'm going to show you Scott Soder's. I think this is so he does a couple different things. He'll do where he'll have his name on a post, or he'll do like this circle that he does, like a ghosted. He does this a lot. And so I would just say on some of yours, I think that I love this texture that you're creating, especially because it's connected to your school. I think you should brand that. I think that you should have your Josh Morey something so that it's ghosted on those so that people could, because if I'm taking screenshots like I do, my phone is full of screenshots of inspiration, but I think that it's a style you can tell. I mean, that's one thing I love that you did in so much of this is that even when you were doing your lettering, you have this whole like pile of the lettering that you've done. And I just I love things like this, but even that with your little Josh Morey right there, I just think you I just think it's really important. I teach my kids to do this. Granted, I don't do this. So do what I say, not what I do. I need to do it better too. But I think that would be.
It's definitely a good point. I've thought about it. The other part for me, and so we run into this with work things where everyone's like, put a Spartan helmet on it. And I'm like, but everything has a Spartan helmet on it. And then for me, it's that visual look of, because I use Instagram as my portfolio now too. I shut down my website because as most people's website, you don't update it until you're looking for a job. Right. And I was like, Instagram really shows what I'm working on. I put sketches, I do my stories of stuff that comes in. Like today, if you go to my Instagram story, you're going to see some forest green crinkle paper for packing, and it's beautiful because green is my color that I'm obligated to use. So for part of it too, it's that visual break. But I think if you, like the example you showed it, I think if you have a couple different ways like to use that, it doesn't have that same kind of monotony. So you definitely benefit in that way.
Well, and that's some of the things that can come with being a in-house. And I just want to mention, the more you type, the better your chances of winning our last prize. This is the last giveaway we will make. And Josh was going to give a giveaway too. So whoever gets this one is going to get Josh's stuff also. So we're just going to do one person and they're going to get all this. So Josh is going to send you some stuff and me and Kim are going to send you some stuff. So keep typing, people, because that's how you're going to get chosen. Okay. So being inside, you have limits. You have a brand palette and you have standards manual and you're doing these things, and it can be limiting design wise and it can get stale. So having these side projects, Inktober, having these things that are longer periods of time. Look, people are like, so
comment as fast as I can. It's your cat gif of hand pause. Yeah.
So do you know what I mean? Like, is that some of the stuff that you do to kind of push out of just that green or just the helmet or going beyond?
Definitely. And so thinking of Inktober, I was like, okay, well, I want to get better at illustrating, because then I'm going to use those skills at work, and I'm going to do illustrations for different projects. And not every project gets to have that same care. I was hoping it would almost be done by the time that we were going to have the show today. I've been working on a secret project here, and I don't want to show it off yet because it's got to get some approvals first.
Right.
But I was using the skills that I picked up by doing Inktober and some different things. So definitely a line art style, which I did with another thing. I'm using that on a donor gift that we're going to be giving out here for people that donated to our capital campaign when it was running a year or two ago. But using those, oh, come on, Brian. I want to so bad. All I can say.
No, you can't. It's okay. We don't want you to get fired. We are all about positivity.
Glorious. It weighs 8 pounds.
When do you think we'll be able to see it? Like, when could we check back?
Hopefully really soon. So I have a
like this week, next week?
Probably next week, or at least maybe in a couple weeks. So my goal is, so with many things like this, is I try not to, and this is the hard part of my Instagram too, is I try not to show things off until I know that the audience is going to see them. And everyone knows how that works at most jobs. And it's really hard because we want to show things off. So a lot of times if you see my Instagram stories or the posts, a lot of times it might be like a little piece of it or a zoom in or something truncated, because I really want to I'm so excited and I want to show off what I'm working on, but I can't show you what it is yet. And that's the hard part. With a lot of the work we do. So
self-control.
Self-control is a big piece of it.
Share your Instagram link in the chat right now. So
wherever your screen is right now, it's there.
Joshua Morey, Morey, and Joshua, JOSHUA MOREY. So that would be the best place. So Rachel has something, and you're really good at this. Rachel had a question about tips for making meaningful connections at any conference. She's going to Creative South. Way to go, Rachel. Come find me.
Yes.
So what would you, so Brian says, talk with anyone and everyone and volunteer. So what would you say is one of the best things? You have a sticker.
Yeah. This is the hard part too. So when we've talked about this before, Diane, so I have a conference talk that I do called Nice to Meet You. And it's about networking and pushing your personal brand based on your strengths to network with people better and create opportunity through that. Because you never know who you're going to meet if you're going to work with them in the future. And the hard part is this doesn't work for introverts. I'm working on trying to figure out how to get you guys out of your shell. But one of the great things, so have something to give someone. I mean, that's one of the best ways here. And I'm not talking a business card.
That's the thing is wear things with pockets. That would be one tip I would say. So I have my phone, and then I have 3 other pockets that are empty, and they have different stickers in them.
Exactly. So I've seen you like, whoop, and you
think people want to talk to you. In that vendor, they want you to come. You don't have to buy anything. You can just come talk.
I just talk to tons of stuff. Come talk to Diane.
And at Creative South,
go talk to Bob. I mean,
So, but I would also say, don't be afraid to go ask somebody to lunch, or can I join you for lunch? Yeah. I love eating lunch with people I don't know. So almost always, it's pretty fast. We're just walking. That's one thing I like about Creative South. You don't have to get an Uber or anything. You can just walk. And if somebody's alone, I always ask them to go with us. Like if it's just me or if it's somebody else. So I would say have that, because this is what I told my students.
The rando lunch. Yeah.
We had a AIGA portfolio review. And so there was 5 different schools. And so sometimes, they're not as confident, so they don't pop out and they don't go meet other people. But I think that if you can, how do you feel when somebody comes up to you, Rachel, and starts talking to you? You feel better. Like it makes you feel better because they made that attempt. So you be that person. You be the person that makes everybody feel better. They don't know that you're an introvert. You can actually be anybody. And so this is where the beaver comes in. The beavers are like community people. They are hard workers. So questions you can always ask. Where are you from? You're already connected. Like this is one thing I love about Creative South, is that you all are listening to the same speakers. And I started reading this. Jason said, Diane, you should listen to my episode today. Okay, I will. You said I should listen to this episode. And I'm like, I am listening. I'm listening to myself. I'm listening to Josh. What are you talking about? I just reread it wrong. But I think, Josh, don't you think that that's something like you kind of have to become like, what would make me feel better as a person? I know Kim and we weren't friends before, and she just asked me to dinner. And Kim was like, I couldn't believe you went to dinner with us. And I was like, why not? I mean, to be honest, I almost never get to eat because I'm just so busy at Creative South. So my meals are really important, and that I try to spend those with new people.
Yeah,
so
and for everyone who's commenting here about Creative South too, you will meet your lifelong friends there. It's fantastic. Someone was talking about, most of the people that are out are all attendees, which is fantastic about Creative South, because you're adding 800 people to this small town. You do have to put yourself out there a little bit, start a random conversation with someone. The person that I met I met one person in the airport because they saw me, sitting near that gate, and I was probably doing something on my laptop, and they're like, hey, are you going to the conference? And we talked the entire time. The person I sat next to on the plane, we ended up hanging out the entire conference, and the people that were sitting in front of us, we ended up just being a great group of people that all love to hang out together, and it was absolutely fantastic. And we hung out. You will meet genuine people. That's fantastic. I love Creative South. I know I'm super sad that I'm not going back. One, because of the video game theme, which was awesome.
You never know. So have a sticker. I think having a sticker or a button.
So yeah, I've got, it's nice to meet you. And it's probably backwards for you guys. So
no, it's perfect. We see it fine.
Awesome.
Everything's just backwards to you.
Awesome. So yeah, I just, I tell someone, and it's how we end the conversation. I say, hey, it was really nice to meet you. And then I hand you a sticker that literally says nice to meet you. And I've got my little Instagram handle on there. I hand out says the same thing. Nice to meet you. And this all started.
Your handle on there is critical, because if you don't have your website or some way for people to connect with you,
it's right there.
It's too hard. Because if I stick your sticker on it, if I stick your sticker, if I use it,
you can hide it on the side.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I totally am with you on that.
Yeah, 100%. And so it circled back to the Inktober thing. I mean, these are my illustrations I made in Inktober, and now I hand them out as stickers. It's got my handle on it. I give out pins, and a lot of this actually had stemmed, like the nice to meet you, it stemmed from my business cards, where
and you got buttons too.
Yeah, I got buttons this year, which are awesome. I love the buttons. It really had started out where I have I talk about personalization a lot, and one of my strengths is individualization. So finding out what an individual person needs and how can we connect. So, everyone's got their business cards, and I didn't plan any of this. It just happens to be on my desk. And, we've got hello. And then we've got, I design blank. Let's fill it in. Should we stop, collaborate, and listen? Channel the vanilla ice here. Once we meet, we've got our secret handshake that we know. That's how we connect. And this, there we go. Finally, the nice to meet you card. So that's how this all started, with me handing out these stickers. Was, if I can hand someone a business card, that's fantastic. But if I can hand them a sticker, I bet they're going to use it. They're going to stick it on their laptop. It still has my handle on it. You're going to find me that way. And it helps remember it. It is. I do end that, and I truly believe it. It was nice to meet you. I mean, maybe it's my Midwestern charm. I don't know. Maybe it's just because we're all nice and we're so close to Canada. Maybe it's just rubbing off. We can all get some Tim Hortons and have some donuts after this. But, if we take the time to connect, it really was nice to meet you. 100%.
Well, Josh, I've gone way over. I just looked at the time and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have another faculty senate meeting. So I got to go.
Okay.
But I can't tell you thank you enough. I hope that we hopefully encouraged you, Rachel, and hopefully we gave everybody some good tips on, I love the Introvert's Guide. Kim, me and you, we got to do that. That's next. That's March. We did Love on Designers in April. I'm just kidding. I do think that would be funny though.
Okay, wait, one thing. Somebody said, what is behind my O-Shift command sign? Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Poster by Jay Ryan, so I hope maybe that's it. Or we've got there we go, I'm trying to do it, the inflatable Jerry French from French's Paper, because he is essential to life. Yeah.
So what is what is after the command? Command what?
Oh, Z. My life is
exclamation pound.
I can't say those words. You said I had to keep it clean. So, yeah, and I talk about this a lot. I would be nowhere without the Command Z button because we do have to fail. It helps us. But if we're able to undo it, it really helps. So much that my Xbox gamer tag is CMD plus Z. Because the undo button, I can't believe I haven't worn out the Z on my laptop.
Right. They make it extra strong for us, I think.
Try it, go back. Try something else, go back. Failure benefits you, 100%. So yeah, Command.
Amy likes your cameras also.
Well, thank you. I used to, before I had children, I had expendable income. I collected vintage cameras, and cool. Now I don't.
Well, you have one by Jerry.
Yeah. Yep, there's some up there. There's some more down there. There's some more in storage. Yeah, I was slightly addicted to buying them on eBay for a while, and I would actually shoot medium format film when it was easier to get it, right. Actually developed. So I would buy them and I would use them a little bit.
All right, so I just wanted to make sure you guys know there's a couple ways you can support the channel. And one of those ways, I'm going to change the view so that when it's recording, it'll be doing different. You can always give us a review on iTunes or on Spotify because we're there. And you can also catch all these links that we've shared. They will be in the show notes. You can go to rechargingyou.com/288. I love Elementor. That's a plugin. It's how I build websites. Thanks to Brian White, who's here, or he was here.
Elementor is fantastic. We use it here too.
Oh my gosh, it is. So you can take any theme really and make something new. Me and Amy were talking about it earlier in the chat, but I really do love it. So you can check that out at bit.ly/DR Elementor, and that's a capital D and a capital R of access to Audible. So check it out. And hopefully you'll enjoy it as much as I do. I'm currently reading Girl Wash Your Face. So I'm listening to every morning by Rachel Hollis, I think. Oh, thank you, Brian. You're the best.
He is so on top of it.
He is my Vanna. I swear that is you. Oh, yeah. Thank you, Kim. You can also do it from what I use the Divi. That's the Divi theme that I use, and then I use Elementor with it. And it's bit.ly/Diane Loves Divi. And then you can also become a patron, even just for $1. $1 helps. So at patreon.com/Diane Gibbs. And I'm going to plop that in. But Josh, thank you so much. And guys, thank you so much for being here and coming. Next week, we have Veronique Zayas, and she is a go-getter. She is a boot kicker. I can't wait to introduce you to her. She is really building community in Pensacola, Florida, and she's an incredible designer. She also is married to a craft beer brewer, and they are opening, I know, so she has a whole bunch of craft beer stuff. So she's really created a ton, but also have done a lot of side projects that's really made her put something on the map because she decided to make a product for herself.
Okay. And like Diane said too, so if whatever the winner is, I'm going to send them some stickers from here too.
All right, guys. We'll see you next week. Same time,
Diane.
Same place. Thank you so much. And remember, go follow Josh at Joshua Morey, Morey on Instagram. See y'all later.
Thanks.